of course, we're starting with the Media Capacity Enhancement Program. And I think we all have to agree that even though a certain outline was fashioned for the training, it's got to be constantly reviewed and updated. And if you ask me, one of the two important things, skills that have to be taught is verification within newsrooms. It's okay to have fact-checking sites, but journalists need to have a strong culture of verifying, particularly traditional media journalists. You are our last bastion with social media and misinformation and disinformation. We ought to come to a point that says, can this be true? Let me see if City FM has it. Then we know we have arrived, you know. But, I mean, we've done research in our school that shows that there's a weak culture of verification in newsrooms. So that's important. And that's why I like the idea that we should stick to the trainer of trainers, so that when the senior journalists and editors within the newsrooms are trained, it will percolate down. How to do that? I mean, I've heard people say they don't come, but I think that those who have these programs should get to the point that says, let's be sure who is on our list. And if the person is too junior, then replace them with somebody else from another newsroom that will be senior. Rather than just say, well, this newsroom sent this person, even though the person is a national service person, well, that's who they sent. I think we need to work a little bit more strongly in making sure that the right people come. Which brings me to a concern, and again, this is a dialogue that we need to continue to have, a concern that wasn't raised here, but retention, okay? Because even the people that are trained may not be retained. And so how do you deal with issues of retention? And I know it's a complex issue, but we almost need a stakeholder discussion around retention and sustainability of media operations, because the two are linked. And then the upscaling of this training. There are just too many media organizations in this country. We have to think of ways of upscaling the training, because I'm hearing we don't have money to do the training, and we have this on the books, but we were not able to do it. How do we upscale so that simultaneously a lot more people get the training? It's not, what I'm hearing is a training in Ibri, that means Accra people, a training in Kumasi. But how about all of the other regions around the country? And sometimes those places need even more training than those in Accra, and we have to be sensitive to that. The broadcast bill is my, as the minister knows, is something that we started working on when I was but a child, and it's surprising that it still is where it is. And so, Bernard, thanks for your suggestion that you actually create space to bring all these stakeholders, give them 3 hours, and they will give the feedback. We have to work around it and update it. I think an important issue is the safety for journalists issue that we're all concerned with. Tomorrow on my agenda is going with Latif, who used to be at Joy FM, giving protective equipment. City, you guys are on our list. GBC is also on our list. We've done some previously, because it's an important issue. So again, to reinforce the fact that there are all manner of stakeholders when it comes to safety of journalists. Sule, thank you for pointing to the UNESCO framework, very important one, because it does identify those stakeholders. And one of the stakeholders is the media organizations themselves. When we started this program with Latif, and I mean, it's just an NGO struggling to get funds, it's surprising, none of the newsrooms. We've been to Joy, we've been to Graphic, we came to Graphic. Well, maybe that day you were not there, but we've been to Graphic, been to a couple of other places. And what struck us is nobody has protective equipment. None of the newsrooms. City, you don't have it. We'll give you some tomorrow. GBC, you know, and so...
What do you mean protective agreement? I do work at City.
They don't have. He said, please, so bring it, you know. So I'm just saying that this is a wonderful program, a good dialogue. I forgot, I meant to start by commending you, because what I like about it is you're opening yourself up for us to hold you accountable for these programs that you claim to be doing. I thought the critique would be even more robust than that, but they're very kind people in this room, so you are lucky. However, no, on a more serious note, it tells me that you have a collaborative relationship with the stakeholders, and I think that's important for us to do. But I think the newsrooms, and Samson, I'm glad, and I want to date it. It was only a few years ago that media owners and newsrooms started to sue people who attack journalists. It's a recent phenomenon. Why is it that within their obligations, they don't think? And so it struck me when Bernard said he wasn't sure where to go, and so he went to the police. I think there has to be more clarity in newsrooms as to what do you do when a journalist is attacked. And I don't think it precludes you doing both. Going to the police because you have to, but also going to the National Coordinating Mechanism on the Safety of Journalists. So I wanted to point out, and the last thing I wanted to discuss, misinformation and disinformation. And again, Ben, I thank you for clarifying it. And this is in response to Samson's real concern that Sule and I will try and frustrate things. No, we are very concerned about disinformation in particular. And that's why we need to make the distinctions well. It's not acceptable to misinform. It's part of carelessness. But I think the real problem is disinformation. And I think all over the world, everybody is struggling. One of the last articles I read before I came here was the US afraid of Russian bots ahead of their elections. This is the US, okay? And we have the same to fear here as well. I think that for what it's worth, because I'm not very trusting, apologies, Mr. Politician, I'm not very trusting of the political establishment because it tends to be very competitive and, you know, the end justifies the means kind of thing. But we ought to use evidence from Media Foundation for West Africa that tells us that part of the problem comes from them, or maybe a large part of the problem comes from there, and therefore we should have special engagements led by the Ministry of Information about how, and they should come up with their own sanctions. If we catch you in disinformation, what should we do to you? Something like that. And finally, I think media and information literacy has to be go beyond just lip service. We have to put in a lot of programs for media and information literacy, starting from primary school, right through secondary school, right through the universities. It has to be endemic. How do you consume information so that you know that these days it could have been AI, it could have been a troll, etc., etc. And then even for the right to information, what are the cultures around right to information? I'm so glad that you're paying attention to right to information. And I have to say that we seem to have a right to information commission that is very responsive. Sule, correct me if I'm wrong, and they need to be commended. However, because the right to information will only be meaningful if all ministries, departments, etc., implement it well, there has to be cultures around it when you're training, so that the culture means that the culture in the ministries is that your first instinct is to try and give the information, not try and block the information. That should be the culture. And try and see how much you can assist. And also the culture means that stronger emphasis on keeping records, archiving records in every unit in this country. There are wonderful records that we can't retrieve. There are gaps even in our newspapers that are just not available anywhere in Ghana. Read Kwesi Yanke's book, you know. So we need to begin to build those cultures. So on that note, and on the last point is publicity. So you're doing good stuff, but you're hiding this under a bushel, if I may quote the Bible. And I'm just thinking, how much budget, and I know funding is a problem, but how much money have you put aside for publicity of two important things that I heard mentioned here today? The website for fact-checking, very important, and also the complaints. You have had 120 or so complaints in 1 week, but you probably can have more, you know. So if I went to Tamale, would people know that a website exists? If I went to OT region, would they know that there's a number they can call if they want to complain about the media? I'm not so sure of that. So, Mr. Minister, that's your headache. Thank you.